Granular synthesis is another sample-based way of working, and is one that goes back quite a long time, but has become popular in recent years thanks to new approaches in instrument architecture and sound design. It's a style of sample playback synthesis that has a little bit in common with wavetable synthesis, in that it involves playing back loops of audio and blending them together to make a sound. The loops, however, instead of being the equivalent of sampled oscillator cycles, are referred to as grains and are tiny, generally something like 4 to 50 milliseconds in length. These grains can be played back in sequential order, a technique which you actually make use of every time you adjust the tempo of something in Ableton. Let's take a simple drum loop at 128 BPM and slow it down. You can hear as we drop the tempo that we start hearing little strange looping noises within the sound, or artifacts. This is because time stretching is an implementation of granular synthesis. Sounds are analyzed and split into little tiny loop points that are repeated over and over. The more these loops are repeated, the longer the resulting sound is. Certain grains, mainly the decay phase elements of a sound, benefit from more repetition than others. Now that we're very low, you can hear that the transients, the extremely short initial hits of the drum beats, are noticeably being repeated, which creates a strange processed sound. This is a very audible implementation of granular looping, and it's an effective way of making a sample play back at a different tempo without altering the pitch. Granular synthesis can be used in many more elaborate ways, though. In a complex granular synthesis engine, there are a few other controls that drastically affect the sound. We're going to have a look at Camel Audio's Alchemy, as it's an absolutely wonderful implementation of granular synthesis. One of the first parameters that we're going to look at here is grain size, and this obviously will have a huge effect on the sound that we get. The larger the size, the longer the grain. The smaller the size, the shorter the grain. This is very straightforward, and I'll illustrate this using a quick sweep. One of the next parameters that we'll look at is the window, and this is another main parameter for modulation of granular sounds. This is best thought of as analogous to a volume LFO or envelope, because it controls the dynamic nature of the grain's individual cycle. You'll need to experiment with different windows to find the results you want, but remember what you already know about volume envelopes. If you want a smooth sound, you're probably going to want a window with a long attack and decay. If you want a clicky sound full of artifacts and noise, you'll probably want to use either a square wave style window or an upwards or downwards saw. Here are a couple examples of different windows in action. The position of the grain being looped has a huge effect on the sound as well, obviously. And in this case, I'm going to reduce the stretch parameter in Alchemy, which causes Alchemy to draw all of its grains from one place in the sample. Now when we play back our sound, we can hear a very audible single loop. We can also scan forward or backward with the position knob to vary this sound. So now let's bring stretch back up a little bit so we can get a more natural sound. Another main control element is simply adjusting the number of grains that are playing back at any one time. In the granular engine in Camel Audio's Alchemy, the number of grains can be controlled by the density knob. Assuming you have either Alchemy or a granular engine with similar strength, this is a main control element. As I increase the number of grains, they begin overlapping, and this eliminates the staccato nature of the playback, smoothing out the result. Individual repeating grains can often be drawn from different points in the sample and layered over top of one another. This can smooth out the audio and create morphing effects. In Alchemy, this can be adjusted in a multitude of ways, but sweeping the position knob, either manually or via the mod matrix, or adding random time works best, Random time just causes the grains to be randomly drawn from different positions within the sample. This, again, smooths out the resulting sound and adds a sense of motion. So these are some of the main features that will be common across most granular engines. Granular synthesis excels at sound effects and pads, creating a rapid-fire collage of grains from a single source file. It's a great sound source for avant-garde sound design work, and it will allow you to create involved, complex sounds that are great when modulated. In the bass and lead department, we can use granular synthesis to give us modulations, bends, and sweeps that would be unachievable with other forms of synthesis, as we'll hear later.